So I'm gonna talk to you here philosophically, and then we're gonna get into all of the news of the day, and it all kind of ties into this, and that is the collapse of trust. I used to call it the implosion of trust. I said it was the last thing before the world had to be reset, and that is people in every institution have discredited themselves and the institution so much that no one knows who to believe or how to get the truth anymore. And that's where we are. And a society doesn't last long when there is no truth. That's why they're confusing our children with sexuality and everything else. There is no male or female. You might be a furry deer. That's a lie. And we must not allow lies into our life because our children won't have anything to trust because we don't have anything to trust. And if we follow down the road of society, our children won't be even able to trust us. Now, our society, I did. When I told you that everything that you thought was solid would be liquid and the world would be turned inside out and you wouldn't know what was up or down anymore, most people didn't believe me. They thought that was hyperbole, but I said that for 15 years that time was coming. I think we can all agree that time is here and has been here for a while. We cannot be people that are looking to go back because what are you going back to? The 1990s, the 1970s, 80s, 1950s? Those were all not utopian times. Those are things that we should not go back to in whole. There are some things from our past, and this is what a conservative does. They look at all of the things and say, what works and what didn't work? What's good that we should conserve and save? And what can we throw out? And we need to have a vision of the future. I want to boil this down to you and me. This is really kind of my philosophy in my life right now. We don't want to go back to the way things were, and we can't go back to the way things were. There's something better on the horizon. Right now, our entire Western society, and I think us as people, are just being beaten on the rocks. You feel like that? You feel like maybe you're in like God's wash tub and he's just taking you on the washboard and you're like, that's the way it feels, right? Mountain spring water is so pure and fresh and it's beaten on the rocks. Okay. I don't know how that works in Fiji. I think that's just seawater with dolphin pee in it, but everybody thinks it's great. But the mountain fresh water is purified and it is beaten on the rocks all the way down. So let's look at the good news on this. The faster we get it, the closer we will come to the still waters. And in this analogy, I guess, when we get there, then we're just sucked up, bottled, and shipped to some distant place where we're all consumed. But let's let the analogy stop there before we get to the pool. What I'm trying to say to you is we are being prepared for something, and we have a choice. We can either hang on to the things that were of the past, all of it, or we can look for those things that we must have in the future, i.e. the truth, and be excited about the next chapter that we're in. It's really frightening, totally frightening. And to be beaten across the rocks. I have alluded to some of these things in the past year. This has been a very difficult year for my family, my immediate family. We've had a suicide attempt. We've had 3 of my children I have taken to the hospital for depression. One of my children going through life-changing strife right now that is the roughest road I think anybody can walk. And it just, the family is on fire. but I know they're going to make it. Earlier this year, I was really beating myself up because I'm like, what have I missed? How did I miss this stuff? Do you remember those days, Stu? And I was like, I'm just the worst. What? And I came to a place to where I realized, I can only do what I can do. These are his kids, too. They were his kids before they were mine. He loaned them to me so I could raise them to the best of the ability. At some point, when you get there, you just have to say, hey, these are your kids, man. I know you care about them just as much as I do. If I can understand your kind of love, it's probably a lot bigger than mine. So these are your kids, and I can't do it. And then you just have to trust, because they're his. And I have felt guilty. I have felt worthless this year. I have felt completely out of control. Just despair a lot of the times. My wife and I just hanging on to each other. My older kids have told me for years, well, Dad, when we were growing up, you weren't around. And that's true. I wasn't around. And it left a mark. And then my younger kids, now as we're, having family therapy and everything else, which, by the way, we're the best family ever. Anyway, my younger kids have said to me recently, Dad, you weren't always there. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I have been I have tried to be super dad. My kids were homeschooled in the office next to the studio of mine for a while. I mean, I am there for them as much as I can. And then that's what teenagers will say. That's what teenagers will do. And let me just tell you, there is no such thing as balance in life. There is no such thing as enough time for your children. There is no such thing, children, as a perfect childhood. All of it leaves marks. All of it leaves marks. Life is imperfect. Life is hard. Then you die. But it's worth the journey. It's in the journey. It's in between the hard parts. We had a chair in my house, and my second eldest hated it because we had chairs around our kitchen table that had a virtue on the back of every chair. One of them was forgiveness. And if somebody was holding a grudge about somebody, I would say, you need to sit in the forgiveness chair and eat dinner. Remember that virtue. Well, the one that I would assign from time to time was endurance. You need to sit in the endurance chair, right? You just got to get through this. Oh, my kids hated it. Hated it. They have all come back and said, sorry, Dad, you're right, endurance. They thought, life, you just make life sound so tough. And I'm like, it is. A lot of it you just have to get through. And now they get it. Now they get it. But do we remember that? Because sometimes things get so dark for us. We're like, I don't know what to do. I'm completely at a loss. First of all, if you don't have faith, you need to find faith. You need to find faith in something bigger than people, and certainly not the collective. You need to find faith. I don't care if it's the universe. I don't care what it is. But you must have faith in something that is good. Humanity has made it through everything, not the dinosaurs, I will remind you. But we went through absolutely everything. And it does get better. One of my children's doctors called me and said, I can't say anything. I can't talk about the things that are private. I don't want to, And he said, but I had to call you. He said, because very rarely have I sat in a room with a child that admires their father as much as your child does. And he said, you have done something right. And I was like, oh, God, thank you. And it was my day. Yesterday was my day. I got that phone call and I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, and the sun's beaming down just on me as the clouds start to part. And I'm like, it's over. No, it's not. No, it's not. But I had a great day yesterday. My daughter is in the musical Freaky Friday, and I've been trying to teach her something about acting, and it's hard. And she's like, I don't want to do all that. That's not going to make a difference. And then because she's now the lead role in this musical, and it is really difficult, the director was coming to her and go, what do you do? What is that? Why? Where? How did you make that choice? And she's like, I don't know. And I said, well, you know, if you would have done that hard work. And I've been talking to her for about 4 years on this. So she finally did it because she was broken. She had been beaten on the rocks. And so she was like, okay, maybe I should do this hard stuff. She did. She comes back home. The director pointed her out to everybody and said, you know what she's doing? She's doing this acting technique, and you guys should look into it. Because he looked at her and said, you're doing what? How do you even know that? So Dad gets credit all of a sudden. The clouds will roll in, and it'll be a dark, dark tornado, hurricane kind of raining fire. What are they calling that thing over California? The river in the sky or whatever. It's going to come again. It might be today, but yesterday was glorious. Glorious. Make a note of that so I can go back and look at it and go, oh, remember that good day? That'll come again. Because it's going to feel again like you're not going to get past the dark spot, but you will. The good times will pass. Bad times will come. Savor them. Write them down. Know that today, in one of the darkest periods of my life, I'm really full of joy. And for good reason. It's not like I'm manic. It's not like, hey, I think I'm going to win. Let's go to Vegas today. No. We're still struggling. But today is a good day, and I'm full of joy. And part of the reason, the biggest part of the reason, is because I have faith. I know who God is, and I know who I am to him and who you are to him. If you don't, you need to find that. But the other reason is I married for all of the right reasons. I mean, first, smoking hot. So we were polar opposites there, you know what I mean? Opposites attract. She was smoking hot. I was me. No. I married her. Yes, she was smoking hot, but I married her because we both knew who we wanted to be. And that's what got us through everything. She was kind, loving, centered, balanced. Nothing earthly really matters. She is so. I was going to the governor's swearing in, Ron DeSantis. Sat at his table. Didn't know that at the time, but sat at his table. I took my son because Tanya was just not impressed. She's like, "Oh, so I can fly across the country, sit down at a table of a bunch of people who don't know me, really don't care about me, and I'm not going to really care about a lot of the political stuff. Gee, that sounds like fun. I've got laundry to do." I love that. She knows who she is. I love that. Know who God is. Marry right. And remember, the storm will pass.